We have the world champion Gukesh taking on Vachier-Lagrave, one of the strongest blitz players in the world of chess at the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz 2025. It's the round number 17 of Blitz, and both players are looking for a good finish in the tournament. It's the penultimate round, and the players are ready. It's 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment, a handshake, and off we go. Gukesh opens with d4, knight f6, and he plays the London system. Very interesting. g6, e3, bishop g7, and MVL chooses this setup where he has his bishop, the King's Indian bishop, castles, and knight comes out to d2. Pawn strikes in the center with c5 and queen b6, putting pressure on b2 pawn. Knight comes to c4. The queen drops back and bishop e2 played. We have bishop e6 attacking here. The idea is to take and then put even further pressure. Maybe a good idea is to just come back with the knight. Gukesh thinks a bit, brings his rook to c1, but now b5, gaining space. It feels like black's position is very nice because black has space. a6 played. And this is the structure that black has here. He pushes his pawn to e4. Gukesh, even before castling, intends to strike in the center with e4, e5. And queen goes to b7. There's pressure here. Maybe we can push the pawn to d5. And queen b7 might not really be that great and pushes. Bishop goes back to c8 and Gukesh quickly castles. Now he has a lot of space in the center. It has become some kind of a very weird Benoni King's Indian setup where white's pawn is still on c3, black's pawn is still on e7. So MVL now has to take a bit of time to figure out where his pieces belong. Because the bishop would have loved to come out on this diagonal, but there are no free squares. The knight would also come to d7, but what next? And that's the reason why MVL is taking a bit of time. One plan can be to push e5 at the right time, because right now there's de6 and you lose that pawn on d6. b4 played by Gukesh. And maybe it's not the best, but you know, c4 is very difficult to play because of knight d4. It's the best move in the position. So rook e8 played by Maxime quite understandably. And I'm not so sure what he's prepping for. Maybe he's going for this e5 break. That's his idea, which is why he played rook e8. And now a4. Yes, he strikes on the queen side with a4. Have to be very careful here as black. He goes e5. And now after d6, rook e6, it would have been a very good position with knight g5, but Gukesh drops his bishop back. Yes, he's better. Taking en passant would have been even better. c4 played. And now rook a1. This does remind us of Gukesh's game with Oparin in this tournament. He can double up on the a file and try to enter in on a7. Knight goes to f8. And queen c2, a good move. Black is very passive. Rook a3 played. Now taking on c4 would be bad because c4 pawn hangs. Taking on a4. He doubles on the a file. Knight jumps to f4 and bishop f1 played. f5, good or bad? MVL tries to create counterplay. He takes on b5 now. Gukesh ready to enter on the queen side via a7. He goes in, rook takes. And now queen comes to c8. The queen comes to a2, trying to enter down here. And knight to d3. MVL jumps in. One plan could be potentially to take on d3 and then round up this pawn on d3. But there are practical issues. For example, let's say I take, pawn takes, the c3 pawn starts to hang. So he goes bishop b6, bishop h6 played by MVL. And now bishop takes d3 is just very strong. He goes bishop c7, another amazing move by Gukesh. d6 pawn is hanging. He's totally winning here. MVL pushes his pawn to g5. He wants to create some play here. Bishop d3, pawn takes d3, bishop d6 is just complete crush. But it's a bit tricky. Take, bishop d6, queen c3. But then, I mean, I can take on f8 and then this is hanging. So, that's the problem. Taking on d3 is the best move. But instead, Gukesh is taking his time. He has more time on the clock to think and to figure out all the intricacies. The problem is if you take directly bishop d6, black gets some counterplay with g4. With the bishop here and this looking here, it can get a bit tricky, you know, this sacrifices on the f2 square. So the best idea is to just eliminate the knight on d3 right now. Gukesh had 3 minutes 33 seconds before this move and is now down to almost 2 minutes. He's thinking for close to a minute and a half, and rightly so. This is the key moment in the game. All the hard work can get turned around if Gukesh is not so careful here. Taking his time, he takes on d6 and MVL quickly pushes g4. Takes the pawn now. And he takes back fg4. The bishop is looking at d2, but the queen is protecting it, so the knight can move away. Knight h4, knight f5 plans. He goes knight h4. And maybe some sacrifices on f2, but a better idea could be to execute it with bishop g5. Oh, he takes on f2. He chops off this pawn. Insane. Now MVL sacrificing. Take the knight. Gukesh must take it. Suddenly this is what MVL does. He makes the position so crazy. Queen d8. And now, although white has these excellent pieces, the fight has shifted to the king side. The knight is hanging. g3 has to be played here by Gukesh. There's no other way out from this. And Gukesh down to a minute on the clock now, roughly a minute. He's hesitating a bit. He's not so sure because queen f6 check is coming in. He plays pawn to g3, queen f6 check, plays knight f5, but better was to go king e1 here. And he was better, but he goes knight f5. This allows bishop takes f5. Takes, pawn takes, queen f5 check. He goes e4, even. Attacking here on the c3 square. MVL so tricky when the time is low and Gukesh has less than a minute. He needs to figure out what to do here. His bishop is also hanging on the d6 square. Well, he could have taken bishop d6, but then after knight e4, he did not like this fact that white was having complete control, which is why he has pushed his pawn to e4. Well, the best move for Gukesh somehow is knight takes c4, which is completely crazy. I mean, it's so difficult. The idea is, of course, to take bishop c5 and then pick up the pawn on c4, but humanly, it's very, very difficult to find. He goes bishop f4, trying to stop e3 check, but it's anyway losing now because e3, bishop e3. Oh, he's going for it. He's going for it. You can't take bishop e3 now. If you take this, bishop takes e3. So king g2, bishop f4, gf4 played, and now e2 is the finishing stroke because e2 threatens e1 queen. So bishop e2, rook e2, and after king f1 you have rook e3. Like the queen enters from this side and it's mate. So e2 should do the trick here. MVL does have close to couple of minutes, so he can figure it out, but he blunders. He plays queen takes f5, and everything is actually losing here except knight c4. Gukesh finds it. Wow, what a move here. And now e2 not possible. The queen is controlling there. Also, if you take, he goes b takes c4, queen takes c4 played. Insane turnaround. Gukesh is back in the game. And e2 is not coming. Knight g6, d6 check, king f8 played. And a nice move, queen d4, threatening mate in one. He takes this with a check, king comes down to g1. If you play knight h3, I'll simply chop it off. The best move actually is, or maybe knight h3, there's king h2, because there's a mate here. The best move is knight e2 check. Look at this, knight e2. If you go king h1, I take this with a check. If you go king g2, I anyway come in here with game over. So you must take, and then I give you a check, and then here, and then I give another check, and then you come up, and then I take this with a check with a winning position. So knight e2 is the move that needs to be found here. It's super tough, but it's not impossible here. And MVL finds it. Takes, check, king h1, check again, king g2, takes the bishop with a check, king g3. Now the king is out in the open. It is a mate. So queen f2 check, king g4, check here, all fine. And look at Gukesh there with 15 seconds on the clock, goes king f4, queen f2 check, king g4, queen g2 check, and plays king f5. Wow. Go queen f3. He goes here. Where's the win? Where's the win? Look at MVL trying to focus here. He wants his rook to come into the game, but it's not possible. And meanwhile, a threat here still looms large. But there is a win. There is a win to be had. But it's not so simple for even a player of MVL's caliber to find it. Check. Can you find it? Can you spot it? King f5. And players are repeating, oh, it's going to be a draw. Gukesh thinks they're seeing if there's any way to win. This also shows his will to win here in a completely drawn position. I mean, completely lost position. He's still trying. And there you see smiles on the face of Gukesh, a rare one after a game. Such a topsy-turvy game. First Gukesh was winning, then MVL was winning, and in the end it became so complex. MVL was winning still in the final position, and we can have a look at how that was winning. But it's very nice to see both of them analyzing with each other. It's in moments like these that players learn a lot, and I believe Gukesh really enjoyed this game for himself, which is why he's not just discussing but also having a great time there. I must say I haven't seen Gukesh smile so much after a game. They arrange the board and they leave. Let's have a look at the final position. We joined the game in this position where Gukesh moved his king to f5. Very risky decision. But if he would have continued playing on f4, then queen h2 check, and here after king g4, there could have come this very important move, which is rook e5. And this actually allows black to win the game. So Gukesh, understanding this, goes king f5, intuitively, check, king here, and the players agreed to a draw by repeating in this manner. However, when king is on f5, you can check from h3. Now this is a very interesting check, because if king comes to f6, your rook can enter the game with a check, which is exactly what you want, and then it's a forced mate, it's game over. So king g5 looks like the most normal and natural move here. But then you go h6 check. And now once again, you will see that the king is running out of squares. If you go to g6, then the rook can join in with a check, but even much better is to give queen check. And if you take the pawn on h6, now rook e6 leads to a mate. And if you go to f6, then here queen g5 is a mate. So that's the reason why here king f4 is the only move after h6. But then queen check, king f3, and now simply take the queen, take here, and e2, and it's all over. The pawn is queening and the game is lost. So the key move here that MVL had to find was to first begin with this check. Couldn't come on the 4th rank, couldn't go on the 6th rank because the rook joining, couldn't come on the 4th rank because of the queen trade and pawn queening, has to go to g5, and once check comes in, it's all over.